One late night, a phone call rang in the apartment of a happy family. The father, Greg, answered the call and received devastating news. "Hello? Is this Greg? Your car was in an accident. The girl driving it has died." Greg couldn't hear the rest. His eldest daughter, Amelia, had been driving. People say that before someone dies, their life flashes before their eyes. Greg didn't die upon hearing the news, but Amelia's entire life flashed before him. He remembered all 24 years, from the moment he first held the envelope with the pink bow at the hospital to this morning when he handed her the car keys. He had warned her as always, be careful, don't stop on the highway, and don't give rides to strangers. Amelia had laughed, kissed him on the cheek, and left, never to return. The voice on the phone kept talking, but Greg could no longer listen. His hand, heavy with shock, dropped the phone. His wife, Valerie, approached, sensing something was wrong. "Greg, what happened?" she asked with a trembling voice. She took the phone and brought it to her ear. Suddenly she whispered, "A body identification. What are you talking about? Whose body? No, please no." Their dog, Bella, howled mournfully, sensing the tragedy before anyone else. Bella was Amelia's dog, the one who had insisted on getting her when she was just a child. Amelia had always dreamed of owning a husky, captivated by their blue eyes and fluffy fur. One day, when she saw a husky on the street, she begged her parents, "Mom, Dad, I really want a husky. They're so beautiful." Although Greg and Valerie loved their daughters, Amelia and Emma, they hadn't planned on buying such a big dog. At the time, they were living in a dormitory after moving from a small town when they got married, after experiencing several unexpected moves due to landlords' demands. They realized renting wasn't sustainable, especially with a baby on the way. They decided to move into a small municipal dormitory where they couldn't keep a dog, so they promised Amelia that when they had their own apartment, she could get her husky. Amelia, being responsible, spent years researching everything about the breed, learning more than most experts. But by the time they bought their apartment, Amelia had already graduated high school and entered college. Yet she hadn't forgotten her dream. Once they settled into their new home, she asked, "Can I have my husky now?" Valerie replied irritably, "We need to finish arranging the apartment first." "You're 17, a grown woman, still dreaming of dogs?" However, Greg had already planned to surprise her for Christmas, and when the day came, they gifted the girls a husky puppy. Amelia was overjoyed, tears in her eyes. "This is the dog I've always dreamed of." "How did you know?" she asked. "You've been talking about it for years," Greg replied with a smile. The girls named the dog Bella after their favorite cartoon character. From that moment on, Bella became Amelia's loyal companion. Though everyone in the family loved her, it was Amelia who trained, fed, and cared for Bella. By the time Bella turned 1, she was a beautiful, intelligent dog admired by all the neighbors. But now, as Greg and Valerie faced the harsh reality of Amelia's loss, it was as if Bella, too, had sensed that her beloved owner was gone forever. It was a delight to watch Bella walking alongside her owner, her fluffy tail wagging, well-groomed and perfectly obedient. Bella knew all the commands and gazed at Amelia with her clever blue eyes. At times it seemed as if the two communicated in a language only they understood. Amelia even took Bella to a training site, where a specialist helped train the dog and other pet owners shared tips on dog training. One day, while walking Bella, Amelia tripped and injured her leg badly on a rusty wire. She managed to stop the bleeding, but they called an ambulance just to be safe. Bella remained by Amelia's side until the doctors arrived. They stitched the wound and bandaged her leg. Although the injury wasn't serious, Amelia was left with a scar. For several days, her parents and sister Emma had to walk Bella. Although Bella obeyed them, she didn't enjoy her walks without Amelia. "Amelia, you've spoiled this dog," Greg teased her one day. "When you get married and leave her with us, how are we supposed to manage this troublemaker?" Amelia indignantly replied, "I will never leave Bella. Even if I get married, I'll make sure my husband knows she's coming with us." Greg laughed, "And what about your honeymoon? Are you going to bring Bella along too?" Amelia grinned, "Maybe I won't even have a honeymoon." That conversation took place a year before the tragedy. Amelia never got married, nor did she go on a honeymoon. When Amelia expressed her desire to get her driver's license, her parents were against it. Valerie argued, "There's no need for a girl to drive. I don't have a license and I get by just fine." "Mom, everyone has a license these days. "It's embarrassing not to have one," Amelia countered. Valerie added, "But we don't have a car, and we can't afford to buy you one anytime soon." Amelia, ever determined, replied, "I'll drive Dad's car for now, and later I'll buy my own." Greg couldn't argue with that logic. It would be convenient for someone else in the family to have a license. When Amelia turned 20, she went to driving school and passed her exams. Greg had already taught her how to drive, and he trusted her to be a responsible and careful driver. On that fateful day, Amelia needed to give her friend a ride because her friend's father was ill. No one was worried, except for Bella, who seemed unusually sad when Amelia left. A few hours later, Bella began acting strangely. She paced around the house, then went to the front door and started scratching it. "Emma, take Bella for a walk," Valerie called from the kitchen. "I'm busy studying for exams," Emma replied, annoyed. Reluctantly, Valerie took Bella out herself. But Bella grew more anxious outside, trying to run off until Greg arrived home. Bella whined and ran to him. "Calm down, Bella," Greg said. "Amelia will be home soon." But later that evening they received the devastating call from a policeman. There was no need to identify Amelia's body. Her car had gone off a cliff, crashing through a guardrail and bursting into flames. Her remains were buried in a closed casket. At Amelia's funeral, her mother, Valerie, was inconsolable. Clutching the casket, she wept, "My sweet little girl, why can't I see you one last time? Why can't I hold your hand?" Greg and Emma were devastated as well, but they grew concerned about Valerie's well-being. Her grief was so overwhelming that they feared for her life. Every day they had to call an ambulance for her, but nothing changed. She wouldn't get out of bed or eat. Emma, who had just turned 21, took over all the household responsibilities, caring for her mother and urging her to eat, take her medication, and at least walk around the room. "Mom, we all miss Amelia, but we have to live for each other." "Daddy and I need you," Emma pleaded. "I need you too," Valerie whispered, "but I don't know how to live without Amelia." Greg worked tirelessly to distract himself from the pain, but he knew he had to help Valerie survive this tragedy. He spent every free moment by her side, reminiscing about Amelia, from her first smile to her first word. At first, these conversations seemed to make Valerie's sorrow worse, but slowly she began to open up, cry, and eventually get out of bed. And what about Bella? In the wake of the tragedy, everyone had nearly forgotten about the dog. It seemed as if Bella understood the depth of everyone's grief, and she didn't want to bother anyone. The dog appeared to lose her will to live. Emma took her out for walks, but it was hard to recognize the once beautiful dog. Bella had lost a lot of weight, her once shiny fur was now dull, her tail hung limply, and her blue eyes were constantly filled with sadness. The neighbors whispered, "That's the dog's loyalty." At home, Bella lay lifelessly by Amelia's bed, refusing to eat or drink. Even as Valerie began to recover getting out of bed, taking showers, and occasionally doing small tasks in the kitchen, she was quickly exhausted by every activity. Everything reminded her of Amelia. Sometimes Valerie would sit for hours holding one of Amelia's belongings, as if under a spell. Other times she would sit next to Bella, talking to her about Amelia. "I know how much you miss her, Bella. I miss her too. I don't know how to go on without her. Sometimes I hear her voice, her footsteps, smell her scent. And then I remember she's really gone." Bella would whimper softly and lick Valerie's hands, sensing the shared pain between them. A year passed since Amelia's death. The pain remained, but life continued. Valerie's hair had turned gray, and she had aged considerably, though she tried to suppress her emotions. The family even began celebrating holidays again, though they were quiet and subdued. Sometimes, out of habit, Valerie would set the table for 4, only to realize there were now just 3 of them, bringing fresh tears to everyone's eyes. Amelia's absence was felt keenly, especially when they looked at Bella, who had deteriorated even further. Emma, ashamed of Bella's frail condition, decided to call a vet. "I can't bear to see her suffer like this. Maybe it's time to put her down. She's starving herself to death anyway," Emma said. "Are you crazy? You're not going to kill your sister's dog. What if Amelia comes back? What will you tell her?" Valerie shouted, alarming both Emma and Greg. Emma felt like her mother had lost her grip on reality. Greg grew concerned too, but neither of them said anything, hoping Valerie would come to her senses. When the vet examined Bella, he confirmed that she was physically healthy but severely malnourished. Her mental state, however, is dire, he said. You need to force her to eat, take her out, and try to distract her. If you don't, she'll simply waste away. She's young and otherwise healthy, so do everything you can to help her. Despite this advice, Bella continued to decline. Greg could no longer stand watching her suffer. We need to take her to a bigger city where there are better vets and animal psychologists. This is Amelia's dog, and we owe it to her to try everything we can, he insisted. How will we get her there? We don't have a car anymore, and dogs aren't allowed on trains, Emma said. We'll pay for a whole compartment if we have to, Greg replied. You and I will go together. Maybe it'll help us get away from the routine for a bit. They took the train to the city, with Bella quietly lying by their side. She was in such bad shape that she offered no resistance, walking obediently next to them. When they arrived at the vet clinic, the driver was shocked by the dog's condition. Greg briefly explained the situation, and the driver shared a hopeful story. My mother-in-law's dog once got sick, and we thought about euthanizing her. But the vet recommended a pet psychologist and some medication, and the dog recovered. It was expensive, but it worked. This gave the family hope, but their visit to the veterinary clinic proved fruitless. The doctors confirmed what they had already been told: Bella was physically healthy but emotionally broken.
Longing for Amelia. I can prescribe some vitamins and tranquilizers, the vet said, but there's no cure for grief. Either she'll recover on her own, or she won't. Greg pleaded, Isn't there anything else we can do? We can't just let her die like this. The vet suggested euthanasia as a last resort, but the family refused. With heavy hearts, they left the clinic, realizing there was little they could do. They sat down on a bench to wait for their train home, knowing they were only prolonging the inevitable. 5 hours remained until their departure, and they resolved to spend that time with Bella, hoping the fresh air might provide some comfort for their beloved dog. I hope she doesn't die on the way home, Emma said gloomily. Fortunately, the weather was nice, and Greg noticed a small park ahead with an ice cream truck by the entrance. He bought 4 servings, hoping the treat might cheer Bella up. But when he looked around, Bella was nowhere to be seen. Where's Bella? Where did she go? Greg asked, confused. Valerie and Emma began searching, baffled that Bella, already so weak, could have wandered off. Suddenly, a passerby shouted, There's your dog. Get her before she bites someone. Hurrying toward the crowd, they were astonished to see Bella. Though still thin and frail, she now seemed energized, walking purposefully toward a young girl standing with her back to everyone. The dog howled happily, snuggling against the girl's legs. Emma, confused, rushed over to Bella. What's wrong with her? Emma muttered, trying to pull Bella away from the girl. Passers-by began to complain. Are you even feeding your dog? She looks rabid. Emma grabbed Bella's collar, attempting to pull her away, but Bella wouldn't budge. The girl, now facing them, turned around. Emma froze in shock. It was Amelia. At that moment, Greg and Valerie arrived. When Valerie saw the girl's face, she fainted. Bella continued to snuggle at the girl's feet, who remained calm, even stroking the dog. Yet, she didn't seem to recognize anyone. The well-dressed man next to the girl was displeased. Zoe, don't touch the dog. I think it's sick. We should leave. Valerie regained consciousness, and upon seeing the girl again, reached out and whispered, Amelia, my daughter? The girl, whom the man had called Zoe, fed Bella some food from her bag, and Bella ate it eagerly. The girl, intrigued by Bella, muttered, her blue eyes, and that pink spot on her nose. The man continued to protest, Darling, don't touch that dog, it could be dangerous. Remember, you're pregnant. Emma couldn't stop staring at the girl, who looked exactly like her sister Amelia, except for the hair color. Amelia had always bleached her hair, while this girl had dark hair. The man, growing impatient, threatened to call the police. Emma, still in disbelief, said, I'm sorry. It's just that your wife looks exactly like my sister, who passed away in a car accident. She was the owner of this dog, and that's why Bella is reacting this way. "You don't understand dogs at all," an elderly man who had been watching remarked. "Dogs don't recognize people by their face, they do it by smell and other signs, and they are never wrong. I'm a specialist, trust me on this." Suddenly the girl knelt in front of Bella, hugged her, and quietly said, "Bella." Everyone froze. No one had mentioned Bella's name in front of her, which meant she somehow remembered. Valerie wept quietly in Greg's arms, and even Greg couldn't hold back his tears. "Amelia, do you really not recognize us?" Greg asked, his voice trembling. The man, clearly agitated, snapped, "Are you people crazy? Do you go up to every girl who looks like your daughter and claim she's your daughter?" "No, not every girl," Greg responded, "but Bella recognized her. We didn't even see her face before we approached, and then Amelia recognized Bella too. You saw it." Valerie, still crying, kept calling out to her daughter. Suddenly, the police arrived. "What's going on here?" "Whose dog is this?" one of the officers asked. "That's their dog," the man said angrily, pointing to Greg and Valerie. "It almost bit my pregnant wife. And these people claim my wife is their dead daughter. They're crazy, take them away before they hurt someone." Emma, determined, shouted, "That's really my sister? Mom, Dad, look. She has the same scar on her leg, the one from the accident. We even still have the medical records. I'm sure it's Amelia. We need to do a DNA test." Valerie and Greg embraced the girl, while the police and Zoe's husband stood in confusion. Amelia or Zoe tried to remember something but couldn't. The police decided to take everyone to the station, and Zoe was sent to the hospital to ensure her pregnancy was unaffected by the commotion. At the police station, as the family struggled to piece together what had just happened, Zoe's husband began explaining first. "My pregnant wife was attacked by a strange-looking dog in the park. The dog's owners started talking about their dead daughter being resurrected in my wife's body. They've been harassing us ever since. My wife is looking for scars on her body, and it frightened her, so she went to the hospital," Anthony said, visibly concerned. The officer asked, "But are you sure your wife isn't their daughter? What are you talking about?" "We've been married for a long time. Her name is Zoe, not Amelia. I just called my friend who attended our wedding. He'll be here soon to confirm everything. I feel bad for these people. They lost their daughter, and maybe grief has driven them mad. But I won't let them harass my pregnant wife. Or maybe they're just criminals trying to blackmail me because they know I have money." The officer nodded thoughtfully. "But your wife did seem confused by everything." Anthony sighed. "Wouldn't you be if strangers with a dog came up to you claiming you were their child? I've already told you my wife is pregnant and sometimes feels unwell. Yes, she has memory problems, but that has nothing to do with this situation. Do you really think she died, was buried, and then came back to life with no memory? Besides, Zoe and I were married before their daughter even died." "I understand, but we need to get to the bottom of this. These people don't seem crazy. Do normal people walk around with rabid dogs and claim every stranger is their dead relative?" Anthony retorted. "Investigate if you must, but leave my wife out of it. She doesn't need the stress. I hope she'll calm down at the hospital." "How serious are her memory problems?" "It's not too bad," Anthony explained. "She's aware of her surroundings but sometimes forgets things from her past. For instance, we lived abroad for a year after our marriage, and she doesn't remember it. But I can prove everything." Meanwhile, in another room, Greg was explaining everything to another investigator. "You see, our daughter Amelia supposedly died a year ago in a car accident. We were told the body was burned beyond recognition. We didn't even see her body, just remains that were buried in a closed coffin. But today we encountered a girl who we believe is Amelia. What makes you so sure?" The investigator asked. "The dog recognized her. Bella ran to her before we even saw the girl's face, and then the girl called Bella by name. She also has the same scar on her leg that Amelia had. This can't all just be coincidence." The investigator nodded, intrigued. But her husband, Anthony, is against a DNA test. He says he can prove everything. Greg replied, "Let them stay together. Let her name be Zoe or anything else, but we need to know. We've spent a whole year thinking our daughter was dead. Suddenly we meet her in a park, alive. Please let us do the DNA test." Just then, Valerie's phone rang. She answered, her eyes filling with tears as she heard her daughter's voice. "Mom, it's me, Amelia. I love you and Daddy and Emma. Bella helped me get my memory back." "Where is she? Where's my dog?" Valerie, overjoyed, cried out, "Amelia, my sweet girl, we're at the police station now with Bella. We'll come to you soon." She turned to Greg and Emma. She remembered everything. No tests needed. Amelia's voice came through the phone again. "Can you come to the hospital now?" "I'm fine, but I want to see you. Is Anthony with you?" "Yes, he's here too," Valerie replied. At that moment, Anthony exited the investigator's room. Valerie, overwhelmed, hugged him. She remembered us. Anthony, still confused, asked, "What? Did you kidnap her? What is happening here?" Greg intervened. "Anthony, let's go talk to Amelia together. We need to sort this out, but we'll do it calmly." Anthony mumbled, "My wife is pregnant. Please, don't stress her out. She'll stay with me." "Of course she will. But Amelia is our daughter too. Let's all go see her," Greg said. Anthony, still shaken, agreed. "Fine, but please don't make this any harder than it already is." As they headed to the hospital, Valerie was still shaken. "We buried someone else's body, believing it was Amelia's. This man, he must have kidnapped her." The investigator, now concerned, asked, "So, whose body did you bury?" Greg tried to calm her. "Let's not accuse anyone yet. We need to speak with Amelia first." At the hospital, they were finally reunited with Amelia. Tears flowed freely as the family embraced. Even the hospital staff, witnessing the emotional reunion, couldn't hold back their tears. On the way home, Anthony drove in silence, the weight of everything still sinking in. Amelia, softly stroking Bella, asked Anthony to stop by a pet store. "We need to get food for Bella, my poor dog. She's so thin and weak." "Emma," her voice trembling, replied, "Amelia, we have so much to tell you. We came to this city hoping to cure Bella." Emma began, her voice heavy with emotion. "She's hardly eaten since the accident. All she did was lie by your bedside and howl." Amelia smiled softly at Bella. "That's okay, we'll fix that soon. Bella will be the most beautiful dog again." Once they were home, Amelia immediately poured food and water into Bella's bowl. Bella devoured the food quickly and signaled she wanted more. "Wait, Bella," Amelia said gently, "you've been starving for too long. You can't eat too much at once. Drink some water and lie down next to me." The family sat around the large table, while Bella lay at Amelia's feet, resting her muzzle on her owner's shoe. "Are you guarding me? Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere now." Greg leaned forward. "Amelia, sweetie, tell us what happened." Amelia took a deep breath. "You probably remember that day I drove my friend Tiffany to her father's house because he was sick. I stayed there for a while, but it got dark, and I decided to head home." "Tiffany told us," Valerie whispered. "She blamed herself at your funeral." Amelia winced at the word funeral. "Yeah, at my funeral. Anyway, on my way home, I saw a girl by the side of the road. Dad, I know you always told me never to pick up strangers, but I felt sorry for her. It was so cold and she looked upset. So I stopped and offered her a ride. She was about 20, but she seemed untidy and nervous. I thought she might be on drugs. As we drove, she suddenly started crying. She told me her boyfriend had broken up with her and she didn't want to live anymore. I tried to calm her down, but she was hysterical, saying she'd already tried to kill herself and nothing worked. Then, out of nowhere, she screamed, "Are you happy? Let's both go to the grave," and grabbed the steering wheel. The car spun out of control, and we went over a cliff. Valerie gasped, her hands trembling. So we buried that girl, not you. Amelia reached out to her mother. Mom, I'm alive. It wasn't your fault.
Anthony, who had been quiet, finally spoke up. I was driving home from a meeting when I saw someone lying on the road. It was Amelia, though I didn't know her name then. She was unconscious, covered in blood. I thought she'd been hit by a car. I panicked. I didn't want to get blamed for something I didn't do. So I told the hospital she was my wife and that she'd fallen down the stairs. Valerie's eyes narrowed. And she just went along with that? Anthony nodded, guilt clouding his face. When she woke up, she didn't remember anything, not her name, nothing. She even confirmed my lie, thinking she was really my wife, Zoe. I brought her home, hoping she would eventually remember who she was. Valerie's voice turned sharp. You took advantage of her memory loss. You could have tried to find her family. Amelia squeezed her mother's hand. Mom, please let him explain. Anthony, looking increasingly frustrated, continued, I didn't mean any harm. I liked Zoe, but I knew something was off. I had my friend, a doctor, come and check on her. He said she had a head injury and that her memory loss was probably temporary. I tried to find out who she really was. I even searched the news and found the report about the accident. It said a girl had died, but I thought that meant Zoe had been hit by that car. I never imagined she could be the driver. Greg, trying to keep the peace, said, You didn't try hard enough, Anthony. You should have done more to find out who Amelia really was. Anthony hung his head. I know. But I was scared. I didn't want to lose her, especially when no one seemed to be looking for her. Valerie's voice cracked. How could we look for her when we thought she was dead? You picked up my daughter like a stray cat and gave her a new name. How could you? Amelia stepped in, her voice soothing. Mom, please, it's over now. I remember everything. He didn't hurt me. I'm here and I'm okay. Greg rubbed his temples, clearly stressed. Anthony, you must have realized that she had a life before she met you. Parents, maybe even children. How could you not investigate? I did try, Anthony insisted. I drove to nearby towns, asking if anyone had heard of a missing girl. But there was nothing. Valerie let out a long sigh, her anger slowly fading. It doesn't matter anymore. What's important is that Amelia is home. Amelia, looking around the table, smiled sadly. Yes, I'm home, and I'm so sorry for all the pain you went through. But I'm here now, and we'll fix everything. Starting with Bella. Amelia leaned down to pet her dog, who had been quietly lying beside her the whole time. Bella's tail wagged gently, and for the first time in months, the dog seemed at peace. Emma, finally breaking the heavy silence, said softly, Amelia, we have so much to tell you. Anthony sighed deeply, looking defeated. I did everything I could to find out who Zoe Amelia was, but no one was looking for her. I even asked friends in the police, but there were no reports of a missing girl who matched her description, not even the girl who died in the accident. Valerie, still upset, muttered, so no one was looking for the girl we buried. Emma had been silently absorbing the conversation, not as outraged by Anthony's actions as her mother was. Maybe someone was looking for her, she said quietly. Anthony, trying to justify himself, explained, the police showed me pictures of missing girls, but none of them looked like Zoe. And yes, I lied and told Amelia she was my wife, but I never forced her to be with me. Valerie shot back, but you continued to call her your wife, didn't you? You lied, and you just waited for her to fall in love with you? Anthony looked pained. Yes, I fell in love with her, and I couldn't imagine life without her anymore, but I never forced her to stay. I cared for her and was afraid that if she remembered her past, I'd lose her. Amelia, still holding Anthony's hand, said softly, Mom, I'm not angry with him. He saved me. He didn't know anything about you or my past. I didn't remember anything at all. Anthony continued, I even took her to a private clinic for a full checkup. The doctor said it was best not to force her to remember anything, as it could cause more harm. Besides, I didn't know if her past was good or bad. Yes, I was scared she might leave me once she remembered, so I told people we were married. Valerie, still outraged, spat, How could you believe that there was nothing left of your past life, not even a single photo? Anthony responded, I told her that our luggage was stolen at the airport when we moved back from abroad, and all our documents and pictures were in it. My friends helped create a new passport and marriage certificate for her. Honestly, I didn't want her to remember anymore, especially after we became real husband and wife. It was the happiest year of my life. Now we're expecting a baby, and I don't care if she's Zoe or Amelia. I just want her with me. Greg, trying to mediate, said firmly, "We've learned the truth now. There's no point in blaming anyone. What's done is done. We need to figure out how to move forward." Amelia looked at her father. "I want my past back. I need to recover my real identity." Anthony looked concerned. "Do you think I'll get in trouble for making a fake passport?" Greg sighed. "I don't know, but we'll have to deal with that." "Amelia, you'll need to restore all your documents and get your identity back. But we also need to talk about how to move forward as a family." Valerie couldn't hold back her anger. "Amelia needs to come home. She shouldn't live with a man who did something so despicable." Amelia, on the verge of tears, defended Anthony. "Mom, please stop. He saved me, cared for me, and yes, he lied, but he never meant to hurt me." Valerie shook her head. "You don't understand. If it hadn't been for Bella, we would never have known you were alive. You'd still be living as Zoe, without a past." Amelia whispered, "But everything is fine now." "Everything is fine for now," Valerie said sternly. "But what about the future? What if he falls in love with someone else and leaves you? You'll have no identity and no past to fall back on." Anthony, pacing nervously, responded, "I love her, Valerie. Why would I do that?" Valerie shot back, "People change. What if one day you decide Zoe never existed and your marriage was a lie? Where does that leave Amelia?" Anthony, visibly frustrated, said, "It's not going to be easy to build a relationship with you, is it?" Valerie retorted, "I'm not your mother-in-law. Zoe's mom is your mother-in-law. My daughter is Amelia, not your wife." Greg, finally losing his patience, shouted, "Enough, Valerie. You're taking this too far. Yes, Anthony made mistakes, but we're not helping anyone by making things worse." Emma, still amused, couldn't help but laugh. "Mom, this has gotten absurd." Greg, turning to his daughter, said, "Emma, this isn't funny. We're trying to figure out how to help Amelia, and you're laughing?" Emma shrugged. "The situation is serious, but the way Mom is spinning it makes it sound ridiculous." Amelia, looking pale and confused, asked softly, "Isn't it possible to recover my documents here?" Greg responded, "Yes, but it might take some time. We'll need to go through the proper channels." Anthony stepped forward. "Amelia, whatever happens, I'm with you. Whether you're Zoe or Amelia, I love you." Amelia looked between her mother, father, and Anthony. "I want to be Amelia again. I want my life back." Greg nodded. "Then that's what we'll do. Let's focus on restoring your identity first. We'll figure out the rest later." Anthony, trying to calm the tension, spoke up. "I think it's possible to work this out. Valerie, please try to understand Amelia is expecting our baby, and she doesn't need unnecessary stress." Valerie, still suspicious, said sharply, "And while she's with you, I'm sure you'll come up with another sneaky plan to keep her away from us again." Emma chimed in, trying to lighten the mood. "Mom, just imagine how surprised everyone will be when we come home with Amelia. Everyone knows about the accident." Valerie, not swayed, muttered, "That's the least of my worries. I'm not going to hide my daughter for the rest of my life. But we need to prepare people for the truth somehow." Greg agreed. "Yes, we should plan it out. Emma, since you're always on social media, I bet you've already told someone." "I've only told Natalie so far," Emma admitted with a smile. "But you know how fast news spreads. By the time we get home, everyone will probably be waiting at the train station with flowers." Amelia, feeling overwhelmed, sighed. "I don't want anyone meeting me at the train station." Valerie, still frustrated, replied grumpily, "So you don't need your mom anymore, do you?" Valerie, calm down, Greg said firmly. "We'll restore Amelia's documents, but to do that, she has to come to our town and confirm she's alive. I can take care of restoring the documents." Anthony offered. Greg shook his head. "I'm sorry, but after everything, I can't trust you to handle that. I'll take care of her passport myself." Anthony, resigned but determined, responded, "You can blame me and hate me all you want, but I love Amelia, and I don't want to lose her or our baby. When all of this is sorted out, Amelia and I will get married again officially." Amelia, feeling exhausted, agreed. "We're already husband and wife in our hearts, but I understand we need to make it official." Valerie, unable to hold back her anger, snapped, "We don't care about what you want, Anthony. You've already caused enough trouble." Greg stepped in once more. "Valerie, please." Amelia doesn't want to be a single mom, and she clearly doesn't want to break up with Anthony. Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes. "I love him, Mom. I want us to stay together." Seeing the growing rift between her parents and Anthony, Amelia felt torn. She had found her family again, but they lived in different cities and she longed to see them every day after such a long separation. Anthony suddenly had an idea. "I'll buy an apartment for you in our city. We can find one near us." Emma, always quick to support the positive side, chimed in, "Cool. That sounds like a great idea." Valerie wasn't convinced. "We don't want anything from you," she said coldly. "I knew you'd say that," Anthony responded, "but I don't have any other solution. If you have better options, I'm open to them." Valerie was about to snap again, but Greg stopped her. "Valerie, stop. Anthony is just trying to find a solution. We've been talking about moving to this city for a long time, and now might be the perfect opportunity. We can sell our apartment back home and finally be close to Amelia." Amelia, pleading with her parents, said, "Please accept Anthony's offer. He's a good man, and I love him. I've never been happier. Please let us all be happy together." Valerie finally sighed, her stubbornness fading. "You're right, Emma. I don't know why I'm acting like this. The thought of leaving Amelia, after everything, terrifies me. I don't want to go back to that town, to that grave. I'm afraid that everything today is just a dream, and I'll wake up to find her gone again." Amelia, tears in her eyes, said, "Mom, this isn't a dream. I'm alive, I love you, and I love Anthony too. I'd be so happy if you moved here. You always dreamed of living in a big city. Now you have that chance." Valerie, still emotional, said, "I'm not refusing. But we need time to think about it. We have to find a suitable apartment, restore your documents, and make sure everything is in place before the baby is born." Greg, sensing the conversation finally calming down, added, "We'll take it one step at a time. Let's not rush anything." Suddenly Emma, breaking the seriousness of the moment, said with a grin, "Amelia, you've been talking for hours, but you haven't even offered us tea. I'm starving." Amelia, realizing the tension had lightened, laughed. "You're right." She rushed to the kitchen, with Bella following her closely. This small joke improved the atmosphere, and soon everyone was enjoying tea and snacks, discussing plans for the future, including the idea of buying an apartment and moving closer to Amelia. The next day, Amelia's family returned home to begin the process of restoring her identity and explaining the miraculous resurrection to friends and neighbors. Meanwhile, Anthony started looking for a suitable apartment nearby. Over the next 6 months, everything fell into place. Amelia restored her identity, officially married Anthony, and her parents moved into a new apartment close by. Baby Maria was born, and the family who had once believed they'd lost Amelia forever now relished every moment together. As for Bella, she regained her strength, returning to her role as Amelia's loyal companion and, later, the steadfast guardian of baby Maria, never leaving her side while she slept. The family, finally reunited, found happiness and peace once more.